Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Katrina Rasbold and Friends. And I am excited to have back in the studio one of my favorite people, Tomás Prower. Thank you, Tomás, for being here.
Hello, hello. Good to be back.
So you were brave enough to come back for round two. And if people watch round one, which I will link down here in the comments, you'll know that we had a real good time. We talked about some real fun stuff, and uh, Tomás actually is the reason why I changed one of the questions, because in the context of talking about some other stuff, you actually mentioned a question or made a comment that you wished you could go back and tell your past self something. And I thought, wow, what a great question. So I booted one of the lesser questions and put that in there. I've asked people ever since, and I had to go back and research who had been interviewed before you and didn't get asked that question. So I could make sure to put it on there round two. So thank you for that. You made my show better.
You're welcome. You're welcome. No, it was. I'm glad it inspired and helped.
It definitely helped. It was wonderful. So the first question that we have, and for those who don't remember, Tomás is an author of one of my favorite books. Well, several of my favorite books, in fact. We have Warrior Magic. We have got Queer Magic. We have got Morbid Magic. Was there another one besides the Magic series of those?
That's the Magic trilogy.
Magic Trilogy. And then we've got La Santísima Muerte, which is the one that really changed my life profoundly. So thank you for that too. And thank you again for being here. So what do you like best about where you live right now?
So currently, I live in Los Angeles, and this is where I grew up. So yeah, so it's one of the largest cities in the world, and there's so many people. So I never had that experience of seeing it through a foreigner's eye. This was not coming to the big city, the big trip. Wicked's out playing right now, so it's like they go to the Emerald City, and there's all this art and all these color. And I grew up in art, color, cultures, everything. So none of that. But what I love about Los Angeles is two things. One, I knew growing up here, and the second one, I didn't know until I left it, and then I could see back on it, be like, that was special. But growing up, I really like the art scene here because this is the capital of all media entertainment. So you have everyone comes here because you have to come here to be on TV, in movies, in pornography, in the music industry, anything that involves a camera or being seen by mass media, it's essentially here now, except for the stage. Everything is here. So everyone comes here, and there's a lot more people here than there are, casting roles. So you have all these people who have this creative outlet, this creative need. And so you see so many different local art performances of people who are top quality people from all over the world who are just performing in a jazz club, who have their band, which they're trying to get signed. And every moment's a PR moment. So every band playing at some little restaurant, at some little place, is playing with all their heart and soul. That there's a talent scout there might be a talent scout manager there. So everyone is always playing with passion, their music, acting, and there's always this electricity of hope, like tomorrow it'll be me. It'll be me. It'll be me. And I love that. I love that energy. I love that you don't have to go to a big Broadway show. You can just see a local show performed by really talented people. You can't really get that too many places, at least that quality. And when I left Los Angeles, I realized, and of course, this is very subjective, but everyone who knows, the most attractive people live in Los Angeles.
Yes.
There is a reason, California girls, and the Santa Monica people, Venice Beach, Muscle Beach. Growing up here, I thought that was very normal. I never, because
no, baby.
there's a standard of beauty, and a lot of it has to do with the vapidness of Los Angeles. And no matter what you can do, there's someone who can look better doing it just as well as you can. So you have to look good in order to survive in the city. Beauty it's not it's not something like, oh, well, and you're beautiful and that's nice. No, you have to be beautiful. So there's that. So it's pressure, and that leads to a lot of problems. But when I moved out, people do not have that same level, and it's not artificial. It's not like I need to get my hair this way, I need to have a beard this way to contour my face. It's just people being born. And I don't know, I think it's I talked with so many of my local friends about this, and our assumption is it's because there's so many people, so you have all these, races and ethnicities blending, so you get those mixed people, and then all this culture, and it's just the world coming together to create so many beautiful people. And the weather, it's always summertime. It never really gets too cold. So you can always do outdoor activities. You can always play. There's always sunshine to get tanned if you can get tanned. Everywhere. And then I guess the bad side of it is I'm not going to name places, but I've lived in places where I'm like, wow, I can't find anyone to date that I would like to date. And it's, in the good part, I can't name the city. I want to so bad, but I know that'll be so bad. How do I say it? When there's no competition for beauty and you get that superficiality aside, people really care about you as a person. Being pretty on the inside is what really matters. So the places that I've seen where the people were the nicest, the absolute, I'll help you do this, I'll reach out a friendly neighbor hand, those had the most unattractive people I've seen. And then the places with most beautiful people I've lived in, here, Vegas is a close second, I'd say. Again, just the mixing of people. It was, there's not many neighbors. I mean, there's millions and millions of people in Los Angeles, but I don't know any of my neighbors. I don't think I've ever met them.
So I'm thinking about, well, my brain's kind of seizing up with comments here. I'm thinking about the vibe. Well, for one thing, the first thing I'm thinking is you illustrated something that I hadn't really been able to put into words, which is I am currently afraid to go to LA. Now I'm up by Sacramento, so I'm 6 hours away. I could get there. Wouldn't be a problem to get there. But I'm nervous about it because I'm afraid I'm going to be the one they turn away at the city limits, saying, I'm sorry, ma'am, you don't quite meet the standards. Nobody wants to date you, so you need to leave. And that had crossed my mind before you said anything. Most people are afraid to go down there because they're afraid they'll get shot. I'm afraid I'll be turned away and rejected.
It's sad. I remember when, I forget what year it was, but The Grinch was coming out as a movie. And we have billboards about every single film coming out all along the LA freeways. And the Grinch billboards were brilliant because it was saying everything Los Angelinos want to say to people that you couldn't get away with unless, the Grinch says it. So it's like when a villain says something a little bit edgy yet true, you listen to it. And it was just billboards saying, there's enough people here, go home. We don't want you. We're being nice, but we don't actually care. Give us your money and get out. And it's true. I mean, people who live in Honolulu, people who live in Las Vegas, any tourist city, we don't like tourists. We want you to get in and get out. But if you're moving here, there is a standard, because I've seen it with my gay friends, my straight friends, everyone. And you see it in other big cities too. It's like, it's practically a Hallmark trope. I'm single in the big city and there's so many people around and I can't find anybody. Yeah. How will I find love? It's true, because something is valuable because it is rare. So when you have a city of millions upon millions upon millions, you don't really matter. And so, for example, in Los Angeles, if 10,000 people were to suddenly disappear off the face of the earth, no one would notice. It wouldn't matter. Life would continue as normal. If you go to a small town and 10,000 people disappear, whether mass disaster, alien abduction, it would affect it. Everyone would know somebody. You could no one cares about you here because there's too many people. So if you want to date, it's very much an assembly line. And so that's why looks, it's very, very hard for people, even people who would be considered like models. Other people they want to date turn them down too because they're not good enough looking, because there's always somebody better. So I've had very hard times try to find people to date in Los Angeles. I do say, with all my Los Angeles love I'm giving, I don't love living here. I don't like big cities. I like small cities. I got to see the edge of town. And again, you're just a number here. It doesn't matter. So the fear you said of like coming to town and being turned away, it happens. It happens. You just get shunned.
That's I don't know. So there's some Amish joke in there somewhere, and I'll find it. Okay, so just being excommunicated or something. I think about the vibes of towns like Seattle. When you think of Seattle, you think of a certain vibe. When you think of Miami, you think of a vibe. Chicago, Cleveland, or Detroit. You know, all of these places, Nashville, they have their vibe. But one thing that I think of regarding LA is exactly what you identified, which is, I mean, and I'd probably get shunned just for saying this, but it's similar to New York in the sense that the amount of culture that's there is mind-blowing. And like you mentioned, the stage, the music scene, it's so intense. And the energy of New York, I have not lived in New York, but the energy of it I've heard described as just intoxicating, and kind of like what you were talking about. There's just so much energy and so much vibe there. So I've lived in little towns for so long in Air Force bases that I never really got to participate in that. So it's exciting to hear somebody talk about it. So thank you. So what's your favorite meal?
It's very cute. It's my mother's meatloaf, to be very, very honest.
That is fucking adorable.
I don't know how she makes it. You know, I've had meatloaf that you get at the store. I've had meatloaf at restaurants, but it's not some childhood nostalgia of like it has to be my mother's. She makes it different.
Wow.
And she has the recipe. I've seen the recipe, and it's basic. It's meatloaf. You know, there's nothing like fancy about it. From some catalog, Betty Crocker catalog she's had for like ever, like one of those cards that you pull out and it's the recipe cards.
Mm-hmm.
One of those, and it's just very, very good. I always love it. And every time I visit home, if I'm there for an extended period of time, like a week or so for like holidays, there'll always be a meatloaf day, and she'll always prepare it because she knows. And I love that.
What do you have with it?
I don't eat sides, to be.
And just the meatloaf.
It's not a picky thing. Like, I don't eat this. I'm very much a mono meal man, in that I'll make one thing and that's what I eat. Because when I cook one big thing. I'm not going to cook sides. I'm not going to clean up extra dishes. I'm not going to buy extra things. I want this. Or if I get sides, like I go heavy into it. Like if I want asparagus, it's a meal of asparagus and maybe some rice or something like that. My side is the meal.
Gotcha.
But the faster answer to that is whatever else she makes is a side. So she makes something, then it's potatoes, then it's mashed potatoes, then it's broccoli.
And it's interesting because the way that we relate to each other is to automatically have comparisons with, well, this is what my life's like. And I'm an avid cook, and I wrote books on kitchen witchery and the whole bit. And I started cooking when I was 10, and that was 54 years ago. And so my family would just be stymied if there was no gravy with it. I mean, you could still give them rolls and meatloaf and potatoes and something green, and they're gonna be like, where's the gravy? They will notice the least little thing that's not there. So it's really sweet that it's just like, no, just give me the meatloaf. That's great. So I'm not afraid to ask this, but I'm tentative. What is your dream time like?
What do you mean by dream time? Like
when you dream, is there a theme? Do you remember your dreams? Do you tend to have mostly happy dreams or sexy dreams or anxiety dreams? Is there a nature to your dreams?
I don't think I've ever really thought about that. I do dream. I do remember my dreams. Not every night, but I think they're special because they're not special in a way. They're very much day in the life dreams where it's not some magical universe. I'm in the same kind of as if I was awake and living and doing things and meeting people and talking to people. So there's nothing really like I don't start flying. I don't meet people. I don't have magic powers. There's nothing super odd or uncanny happens that is just taken as normal. As far as I can remember, they're just very normal. But I do notice that I have more intense dreams vividly, and I remember them more often after I drink.
Mm.
I'm not talking about like downing, a whole pack or like guzzling a whole handle. I mean, like if I go out and I have like a glass of something, or if I have a martini at home or something, the nights that I do drink alcohol and the nights that I don't drink alcohol, the alcohol nights usually have dreams. They're vivid and I remember them. Like not night. I don't remember the last time I had a nightmare, but it's blasé. It's normal. And I guess sometimes now that I think about it more, when you wake up and you think, am I still dreaming? Is what happened? It's because it's so mundane and so nothing special. Like you have to take a moment like, is this dreaming? Am I awake? Is this another phase? Because it's a day in the life.
So I just picture you dreaming that you're watching TV with your mouth open or something,
I sometimes I remember that, like I dream like I'm watching TV, or like I'm going to work.
Wow.
Just very normal things.
So I'm going to throw in an extra question, and this is very gratuitous. Tell me a weird thing that's happened to you as a mortician.
Oh God, so many.
I know, and I hate to this is kind of like
episode.
What's it like to work with Harrison Ford? It's not that at all. You have such great stories.
I do. They are so. I mean, this could be a whole 3-hour pay-per-view special that we do with them, but
and I would listen with rapt attention.
Okay, so one good one I know is that well that I can say publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there was this one. So I had to go on a pickup, which is when the removal people come. So if there's a death at home, you go and we pick up the body or the deceased. We pick up the decedent and we shelter the remains, as we have to say, to the family, because you don't want to say, we're picking up the body and we're going to put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
So we were going to pick up a body to shelter the remains at our mortuary, and it was an elderly Asian woman, and the thing is, if you die at home and you're of a certain age, there's really no autopsy or medical inquest. The police come, it's like, oh, someone died. They were sick, they were elderly. So there's not much really that they do. If you're younger, then everything stops. You have to go to a coroner. There's an investigation because you never know. But this is an elderly case, and these are very common. It's our most common kind of clientele. Just elderly people that they went in their sleep. So we went there. The family was very uncomfortable, but how can you judge it when every family is going through grief? So we take it. That's how this family is. The old lady, maybe like 60 pounds, not sickly thin, but just old, very old, little Asian lady, laying down, sleeping. Pick her up, and we do preliminary checks. We ask to take off the wedding ring because we don't want to be with that, because then the family will say, "What did you do with it? This is a replacement." So we go through the body. Do you want this? Do you need this? There's a hair clipping. Do you want this? Perfect. Preliminary. Took her back. And then every time we go back, we have to do a report, which is a physical assessment. And a physical assessment is done for two things. One, we look the entire body over without clothes on, and we make any markings that the embalmers might need. So like there's an IV drip, so they need to plug that up. Oh, they're scarred. They have jaundice. There's this. So it helps the embalmers. And it also helps the funeral arrangers, because when the family comes in, if there's a massive scar, there's trauma, they have to tell the family, hey, do you want an open casket? Do you want to look? Do you need makeup? Maybe mom needs something high collared. So we do the physical assessment. It's late. We do it very quickly. It's an old lady. And I'm like, oh no, because it's like midnight at this point. And I look and I have a partner, because you always go in pairs because God knows that the family is going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And I say, look at this, look at this, look at her, look at her. And he's like, what? Tired and ready to go home. I say, is there something wrong with her neck? And he looks at her and she's just like, rolls his eyes, knowing that this is going to be another 3 hours. And I'm like, uh-huh. Like, what do we do? It's like, we have to call our boss. So what it looked like is that she was hung or strangled with a rope, because there were heavy rope indents in her neck. And if you've ever seen somebody who hung themselves with a rope, the neck looks very distinctive because it's raised and it's up and it's down. And if you're curious, you can find everything online, but that's what a hanged neck looks like. And it looked like a hanged neck. And we've seen suicide cases before, so we know what it looks like. And I was just like, we can't touch this. The police have to come. So we have to call the police. We call, Los Angeles' finest to come in, and they do an investigation. They're like, yeah. And then we have to call the family, and the family gives us grief because they're like, no, that didn't happen. We refuse an autopsy. Well, we have to do an autopsy because, one of you might have killed her. We have to do it. And they're threatening to sue, say we don't, but then they said, oh, it's against our religion, and that doesn't fly with autopsy cases. And we found out later that the family walked in and found her hanging. She had killed herself. But it was a certain Asian family where shame and public shame of the family is very bad. So they didn't want to be known as the family where, the matriarch grandma killed herself. So they took her off, removed the rope, staged grandma's body as if she just died in her sleep, and the police didn't catch it.
Wow.
It took me, tired as hell, at midnight, looking over her because it's not like NCIS or any CSI investigation where it's low light, blue. No, we have high intense fluorescent lighting. It's like a hospital in there because we need to see every detail.
Wow.
And we found because we thought we had a murder case, and we were all getting like, ooh, the excitement of it all. But no, it was the family trying to cover up public shame.
Sure. Well, that story did not disappoint. Thank you. So another thing I'm curious about, and this is just a real quick question. You often hear, now, first of all, I should ask you about that age, because I started thinking after I turned 60 that when I die now, nobody's going to tilt their head and go, oh my God, she was so young. I figure you're getting into the area of just don't ask any questions, just shelter the remains. So yeah, that's what's in my head right now. But also, you hear a lot about, especially with elderly people, she died peacefully in her sleep. Is that a thing? Does that happen?
It does. It does happen. A lot of people do die peacefully in their sleep. Or they might just, like falling asleep, like you just drift away while you're awake. Not everything's painful. If you have some sort of medical condition, it could probably be painful. But unless there's really some sort of trauma going on, you kind of just slip away. Again, if you're sick, there might be, choking complications and things. But we've had, just because you hear it and it's such a cliche doesn't mean it's not cliche for a reason. It's very common, very true.
That gives me hope. Other than, you're sleeping with somebody and they are not disturbed, I always thought, well, how do they know it was peaceful? Perhaps it was traumatic and she just looks peaceful by the time you got to her.
I'll say, which this answer will give you both hope and despair at the same time. But oh no, when we bring back somebody, if they died in pain.
Gotcha.
They physically still look like it, and you can and you can feel it sometimes. Like with a lot of suicide cases, you could feel the sadness emanating. We even cases where we just pick up and we don't even know the cause from the coroners. We'd be like, you can feel the sadness, and then you look in the medical reports and the police reports, and you're like, oh, it's like, so there's some.
Wow.
I would say there's vibes hanging in the air, but you can also see it in the body if they died peacefully.
That's good to know. I know probably at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is talk about work some more. So I appreciate your humoring me on that. You are literally the only person I trust to talk about anything dead. So and I don't get to talk to you all that often. So thank you for that. So what animal do you most relate to and or it can be either or enjoy the most?
The answer for both is a cat. Because I didn't realize it until my sister told me, and she's like, "You're like a cat," which I'm thinking cool, graceful, slick, but she meant it as like there's this they're very in control of their time and their space.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to be someplace, they'll walk away. They're not fussy. They don't need attention. I'm not. Physical touch is not my love language. I'm not big on let me hug you or a hug will make me feel better. I don't need to be touched. I'm fine. I am completely fine being by myself. I'm the person who, like, if it's a party and it's like it's not happening or things are getting, I'm not feeling it, I just ghost. I just go.
Interesting. I picture you too as being one of these people that because you don't enjoy being touched, if someone does touch you, it's suddenly this like they touched the hem of my garment kind of feeling of who took some of my tutu.
Yes, it's very much a gospel moment where I'm very aware that a body has touched me. I'm where like a hand is on me. It's just like
some of my kids are that way. And one of my sons, when he was a baby, if he would be in bed with me and I just reach over and stroke his back, he would arch away from me. He just did not want to be touched from infancy on. That kid had seen some shit by the time he got here. Let me tell you, something was up. Okay, so Kat, got it. What were or are your best and worst jobs that you have ever had?
So it's the same job. The answer is the same job, and I'll go into more detail about this. But it's actually the mortuary business. Because and you see it so much because there's so much burnout, there's so much turnover for it. It was the most fascinating and rewarding job I've ever had because there's really no other job where you go in and you are helping people at the most awful moment of their life when they need a professional to help them, guide them through stuff, both, because funeral arranging is a lot like wedding arrangements. Mm-hmm. It's for this big ceremony, for this big thing with a lot more bureaucratic paperwork to do. And you're helping people through that emotionally, spiritually, guidance wise, actually legally, actually professionally. And it's so rewarding. And then you're actually helping the people who did die or did pass on. And, you're giving them a good send off. You're helping them when they obviously can't do anything more for themselves. You're giving them the best tribute. So you're the last act of kindness for them.
True.
And it's fascinating because if you also work in the back as opposed to front of house, back of house, where the embalmings go on, it's fascinating because it's a mix of art and science. Everyone that goes back there as a client, every body is different. So it requires different makeup skills, different hair skills. You have to be cosmetologist. You have to be able to do hair. You have to be able to know how to put these very complicated ethnic dresses on them. You have to be able to, and it's also the science part, because what is the embalming fluid ratio you need? Is there high jaundice? Is it a cavity case? What is this? Is it an autopsy? Does it need a single point injection? So it's every day is a mix of science, art, helping people spiritually, being rewarding, but the environment is so toxic. Aside from the formaldehyde, it's extremely toxic. People.
Wow.
It used for many years. It used to be an old boys club where it was, you know, O'Malley and Sons, and O'Malley's like 60 and his sons take it over and they don't care. They're just doing stuff and they want the money. But it's changing, but it's still, when you get like, I can't name people, but when I don't work in the mortuary business now, but when I did, I'm still licensed, but I keep that up to date. But we would get calls from, corporate, because almost every funeral home is a corporation. It doesn't matter if it says O'Malley and Sons, you'll see underneath, it's actually part of this mega brand. And all they care about is profits. So we get calls saying, hey, how come sales are down? Are there too many cheap cremations happening? Why don't you push more casket burials? Why don't you push more of the brass handles? What about pallbearer gloves? And so a lot of the arrangers are forced to be salespeople, which is very uncomfortable, because it's not like someone who, like, I would like a car. I could take public transportation, but this is, my mother has died. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of stuff I got to do, and I'm emotionally vulnerable right now. Well, don't you want mom to be protected? I mean, if she gets buried, what about the worms and the things? Don't you want a good memory picture of her face to be down forever? Then you need the high titanium casket with the gasket lock seal. Wow. I'm just like, so I don't like that. And then and then people are dying, so it's turnover. So you got to get more families and more families and more families, to the point where one of the places I worked at, we run out of shelf space in the freezer. We had an industrial freezer. So we put people on boogie boards underneath on the floor and just put them wherever you can, because it's a business. And so people become dehumanized. And if you don't sell, then you don't get your commission, then you don't get anything, and then you get fired. So and there's so much turnover. And you have to go to school for this. You need a specialized degree, and it pays nothing. It pays nothing. I remember when I worked there, the top mortician who ran the back of the house, for a very, very big and very well-known mortuary, was making, mind you, this is after college, I think was making like $40,000 a year.
Wow.
For like a doctor's level education. So it's so, you gotta love it, but it's so toxic. And if you go on any of the meme pages on Instagram or Facebook, you can see it's a lot of self-deprecating humor, like things I wish that, the question, things I wish I would have told my younger self: don't go to mortuary school. And everyone laughs because it's horribly true. So and that's why I don't work in it now. I love it, but it would destroy me.
Sure. If you had to choose, would you rather be front of the house or back of the house?
Back of the house.
Yeah.
The back of house people, they know they're the cool people. They're the people who are, smoking a closed cigarette, listening to heavy metal. Totally okay, doing super dark humor jokes. Sure. I remember one time I walked into the mortuary and one of them was embalming somebody, and to say hi to me, they took the person's hand that was on the table and waved and says, "Hey, Tomás, welcome to work." It's little stuff like that.
You gotta.
They're more fun. They're more fun.
So a friend of mine, now I'm going to go back 40 years. A friend of mine married to a mortician. Let me turn off this phone here. He did the best makeup ever in the history of the world. His makeup was perfect. Airbrush before there was airbrush. It was beautiful. I had a special event I wanted to go to, and I said, "Do you think Bill would do my makeup?" And she said, "Of course he will." So I went over, and I'm sitting very carefully in the chair, and he's doing my makeup, and he would go, and then he would take it off. He'd do my makeup, take it off. He goes, "I'm sorry. Can you lay down on the coffee table?" And I did, and he did. He had it done in a few minutes. He's like, "Okay, that's so much better. Thank you." He's like, "I can't do vertical."
I love that.
Anyway, I thought I'd tell you a story for a change.
It's funny because it's true. I remember I'm the same way with ties. I don't like wearing ties. So if you ask me how to put a tie on myself, I don't know. But if I do it reverse on you, I can do it.
That's awesome. I love that. So, best and worst jobs you've ever had, same job?
more funeral industry. Yeah.
So if you could go back and talk to that kid who's about to spend a lot of money on mortuary school, what would you tell him to do instead?
Fun fact: I didn't go to mortuary school.
Okay.
Everything's who you know. So I had certain connections that got me the job, and there's certain ways around doing things that kept it legal.
Sure.
So I never went. I would say I would go back and say, you made the right decision. Don't go to mortuary school. Don't do it.
So good
It'd be the
choice.
same, but I'd be like, but I took my advice.
Yeah,
So,
you sure did. Very nice. So maybe you
very
did. Maybe you did go back and tell yourself not to do that.
Possibly. I mean, I passed the national and state board exams to be able to be licensed, but I didn't go to school.
So this is an interesting question to ask you specifically. Have you ever seen a ghost? And if you did, what happened?
So I get asked this all
I'm sure
the time because of my job. Because not only did I work mortuary, but I worked night shift mortuary.
Oh,
so I was, because again, we get a lot of people. You got to turn them out. So there's people there 24/7. So I was the night shift. Because like the previous interview, I'm more of a night person, so it was perfect. The honest answer is I don't know if I saw a ghost. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. The not fun answer, the wah wah, is no, I never saw a ghost. And well, okay, side story in a second about that, but I've never seen a ghost, and I'd be so open to it, like Beetlejuice, the strange and unusual.
Yeah, I myself am strange.
Exactly. I'm weird. I'm strange. I'm unusual. So I would think I was open. I'm very spiritual. I was working in the industry, but no. And I think if I was a ghost, one, I would not. Again, human living people don't like working there. Again, it was the most toxic environment. I would want to be there if I was a ghost. I wouldn't want to hang out there. So it's not a fun place to be in the afterlife as well. But also, it becomes. Working in the mortuary becomes work. So where, when you're so in the zone of work, like everything else kind of fades out. So maybe, but I'm busy. I got to get this paperwork, got to do this. So it was my work environment where I was very hyper focused. Sure. So you'd hear stories from people like, the old janitor that's been there since the old times before the corporation bought it. And they'd have stories about how they'd hear things or the people who had the best ghost stories were always the security guards or the night watchmen, because because we're in Los Angeles, right? So we had a mortuary that's on a very vast cemetery ground, and there are celebrities at our mortuary at the mausoleum. So you get some people who want to break into like either steal some graveyard dirt of a famous person or light a candle, and it doesn't have to be something bad. It could be an homage, something sweet. But you get people trying to break in all the time to see so-and-so's, final resting place. And they'd have stories where they'd hear something over there. So they'd drive near the flashlight and there's nothing there, or there would be a footprint that disappeared. The security guards had all the good stories. But I will say that, again, I can't name names, but the company I worked for, when I was hired, in our signing on all the paperwork, we had to sign a legal agreement saying that we could not talk about ghosts or the supernatural in a non-religious context. You can talk about heaven, you can talk about that, but you can't talk about ghosts, spectral sightings, poltergeists. And it was in our contract that you can't talk about that while you're in uniform on duty. And the reason for that is because it would scare people, because funeral homes are based on reputation. If something happens at them, if it becomes the haunted funeral home, to some people, that'd be the coolest place to go. But for the majority of people, they'd be like, oh, I don't want my mom going in the haunted one with ghosts. So it would ruin business. So for PR reasons, we could not talk about it to anybody. And we get asked questions like, are there ghosts there? And we'd be like,
nope.
There's never been a ghost sighting at our place. And that'd be the official record ads. But it was in our legal agreement. We couldn't talk about it.
All the things you don't see coming. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild.
Yeah. I imagined that if you saw a ghost, it would not be at work.
I would think so too. I have, if depending on how you categorize ghosts, I have seen, oh, as I believe I saw, my grandma after she died, and it was in a dream state to tie all these questions
Mhm.
together. She had died. It was the date of her funeral, but I was living in Europe at the time, so I couldn't go to the funeral. But she was on her way out, so it wasn't a surprise. And I had a dream, and she was just on the porch, and she asked me, "Are you okay with me being dead?" It was very hyper real for a dream.
That's an odd question, isn't it?
It was like, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay with it." I saw it coming. It was fine, and we had a lot of time. It's. And
Hmm.
she's like, "Good," but it felt very, very real. Like, the movie
Yeah,
Contact, when Jodie Foster
I
finally gets in
do.
touch
I
with
do.
the entity, that moment on the beach where it's not real, but it's real,
Yeah.
was one of those moments. And I think that was the only ghost sighting I could recall ever having that I know of.
Hmm. When we moved into this house in 2022, my husband was 46, and he had spent decades in the pagan community and basically as a spiritual consultant for people that came into our shop and things like that. And he had never seen a ghost until he moved into this house. So it's not just
Wow.
you. And he also was very open and, in fact, moderately hostile over the fact that he had not seen a ghost. He's like, everybody around me has seen them. I have not. So it's not just you.
I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah. So what, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but what music, either the type or even specific songs, would you say is the soundtrack for your past?
It's very distinct depending upon what era, because
Mm.
I can honestly think of a genre and be like, I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
I remember when I was very, very young, I was, and I still am, a big fan of Digimon, which is the Pokemon's rival.
Yes.
And there was a movie that came out, and so when I was in high school, the Digimon soundtrack to that movie was the soundtrack of my life. Which is, everyone go check it out. It is the best ska soundtrack you've
Noted.
ever heard. Before I even knew it was ska, it was just all these Digimon songs. But it was professional ska bands doing a ska record. So I would say ska music was definitely my high school years. When I got in college, I started being more politically active. So I was very Tracy Chapman, songs about
Mhm.
change, about the people, Natalie Merchant and the 10,000 Maniacs, a lot of that college rock radio happening. And then when I lived in Vegas, I was dating someone at the time who turned me on to Vaporwave, which is amazing and so bizarre. And it's like a wistful nostalgia for a past you've never had, is probably the best way to explain it. Or
I bet
living in a
there's a
few.
Japanese word for that or something.
Some culture has to have perfected the word for that, and it's, or a future that the commercials promised you but that didn't come to be.
Mm.
But nowadays, in my adult years, I am very much just a metalhead. I love heavy metal, especially the dark and spooky ones. So like Alice Cooper,
Mm.
King Diamond. But every phase is a very, very distinct era. But I would say ska is my youngest. Then I got into college rock, politically active radio, and my adult years is heavy metal.
Very nice. So this is the last one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Plane, train, bus, car, or boat?
Um, I would say none. And like to be like the most
Oh,
odd answer ever. Not to be contrarian, but
no,
I
please.
I don't like transportation. I I walk everywhere, and I love living in cities where I can walk everywhere. When I walked in Palm Springs, I walked everywhere. I had my little grocery cart. I'd take it over there, fill it up, come back, walk to the bars, walk everywhere. Same thing in Reno. When I was living in Rome, I walked everywhere. I always like to walk. It is the best thing. I love it. And if I can't walk somewhere, I probably don't want to go there. I don't like driving. And it's interesting because I like to try and be very peaceful and like find nirvana. But when I have to drive and you have to interact with humanity, because you can kind of select places you go. Like, I want to go to this bar because I like this clientele. I want to go to this club. I want to go to this restaurant. You're self-selecting what you like. But when you're on the road, you can't self-select the society. So you run into everybody that you would never meet, never want to meet, rude people who, you make you question, like, oh my God, the future, what's going to happen? So it forces me to come into contact with people I don't like. I used to love public transportation, like bus. If I can't walk, I'll bus it if I can. But growing up in Los Angeles, that's difficult because everything is such suburban. So you have to drive just to get to the bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you go to the Metro Link, which, they're trying to revamp for the Olympics that are coming here, there's a parking lot. So in order to use public transportation, you have to have private transportation to get to the place to use public transportation. And then you have to pay to park your private transportation to use the public transportation. And there's a lot of stabbings. And I once worked for, unnamed, but I was working for a marketing agency, and we had a bus company of a very big city coming up, and they wanted to do how to get more writers on the buses. And so my, marketing research was they want it to be on time, they want it to be safe, and they want it to be clean. If a bus was on time, easy to access, clean, and safe, people would use it more. And they're like, no, we don't like those answers. I was like, what would you pay us for? Bad answers. The answer they wanted was market how green and eco-efficient their buses are. And that's because the company, as they told me, it's not really the writers that was sustaining the buses. It was corporations, green corporations, to publicize the green energy. So they didn't care if anyone rode the bus. The bus system existed simply as a for-profit mechanism for bus employees based on a private company that was eco-green. So they didn't even care about it. And that's the way it is in Los Angeles too. So
the bus system is just a big Ponzi scheme, basically.
I was so disillusioned. I don't know if it's everywhere, but this one place, again, I can't name it, their bus system, absolutely. But boats, I would love to go on like a 1940s Now Voyager trip where you have to go around the Horn to get from New York to Los Angeles, like the Queen Mary. I would love that. A Carnival cruise, no. I do not want to be stuck on a hotel on a ship with hundreds of people,
floating petri dish. No, thank you.
No. I like the train, or at least I like the idea of a train. Again, the old, is there going to be a murder on the Orient Express? The little compartments, and you sit with people. The lady vanishes, things like that. But it's become so uncomfortable and unsafe to use a lot of those modes of transport.
Sure.
And one thing I was talking about my friend with recently, actually, we were planning a party and I had to go somewhere. I was like, that's too far. I'm not going to do that. So, and they said, well, why don't you ride it more? And I told them the whole answer. Well, then I have to drive and be involved with people I don't want to be involved with, and I'll be upset by the time I get there. And we were talking about it, and they made a point that if you look at all the religions of the world and all the spiritual traditions, none of them are about how to live on planet Earth and how to live and survive. They're all about how to deal with other people. So society is the problem. In every religion, all their messages are how to live in this problematic society. It's not, this is how you live. It's not the essence of existing. All philosophy is kind of like a coping mechanism or tips of how to deal with this thing that we have created called society. And I was like, wow. I gave him points for being so clever, but I still didn't go. And it was
I'm still not going to your damn party.
And we had this moment on the phone. It was magical, but
and see, that was probably the whole purpose of that interaction.
maybe, but I like to walk everywhere. And I
That's great.
specifically choose to live in places where I can walk everywhere.
Well, you did good. Thank you for thank you for humoring me again, and for another wonderful interview. I always enjoy talking to you. I always learn so much, and I always laugh more than any other
Oh,
person I talk to, I think. So
that's
thank
good.
you.
That's good.
You are not someone I would avoid if you were on the freeway and I were driving. Okay. I would be happy you were there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So yes, thank you for being with us so much. Do you have anything you want to share before we say goodbye? Not required, but the floor is yours if you want it.
Nothing that comes to mind. I had a good time coming back. I think everything that needed to be
Thank you.
said was said, and it was enjoyable.
All
So
right. That's awesome. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much. And I hope you folks have a great rest of your day too. And thanks so much for being here. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.